saw this Instagram post today.
Yeah.
About from someone who was formerly in witchcraft and converted to Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know. I don't even know what that was about. I got lost in the comments because there were other people showing up.
Yeah.
And this one lady said, I was deep into witchcraft and like reading darker and darker and darker material because I wanted more power and more.
Yeah.
I wanted to grow in more power. And she goes, the darker you get, the further down you go, the more the name of Jesus comes up as this insurmountable obstacle to your craft. And,
Wow.
she said, well, I want to follow the strongest, so I'm out. I'm going with this guy. Like,
because the name was coming up as almost insurmountable, she went, oh, then the
like,
power is not here, it's over there.
Yes. Like if this is a roadblock to all of art that we can do, like this is the insurmountable. Like, because I'm looking for, like, I'm sure she had all kinds of other struggles on the path, but like I'm out. Like I'm after the one who's the most powerful.
That is awesome.
I love that.
That she had. I read further down. Like I was looking for her to come back with more information.
Yeah.
Like had talked anecdotally about, trying to astral project into like a Christian's home or whatever. Like the warfare that they're fighting, they have in the dark. The further down you go, they're like, if this is a Christ follower who has to invoke the name of Jesus and his blood, like you can see their protection and there's this glow or whatever, like, and they're warned, like it can be dangerous to proceed, like you can be harmful. Like I'm like, we don't even think about what's going on, and there's a whole other world of people who are seeped in this.
Welcome to the Embracing Brokenness podcast, where our goal is to engage with all of those willing to venture deeper into their transformational journey with Christ. Here are your hosts and the co-founders of Embracing Brokenness Ministries, Steve and Colleen Adams.
But listen, Colleen, our audience can't see my hands because it's out of screen, but the metaverse is speaking right now, and they're very happy. The audience is glad that Michael Kurtz is back around the table, so we should be greeting him. Say hi, Mike, to everybody out there. One of the most important part of our ally and our team here is Michael's back with us, so I'm pretty excited to have him back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
It has.
Yes.
I was thinking about that this morning. It has been quite some time since she joined us, so this will be a good one.
Shout out to Katie Bug. We wish she were here too, but she will at some point in life.
Hey, Katie.
I yield my time to John Eldridge.
Oh, you just that's what it was. Okay, there you go.
There you go.
That's right. That's
There's been
right.
a lot of good podcasts lately, for sure. And John,
He was at the heart.
he was the cherry on all of it.
Yeah, it was good to have him. So before we had to tackle this serious subject that we've called castles on the battlefield, can you imagine our listeners, our audience is probably going, what are they called? Castles on the battlefield? This should be interesting. It's the middle of the summer in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is chillier probably right now. But for those of you, I'm going to give you guys a chance just to tell me each one thing that's been really fun about the summer so far. For each of you. Michael, start first. What's been cool for you?
Oh, I recently had all three of my kids in one place, which hasn't happened in a while. So that was nice. Before they all disperse. My youngest is heading to Japan, and my daughter's back in New England. And
School.
Yeah. So that was the highlight.
Yep. Good.
Yep.
For sure.
Oh,
That would
that's good. I
definitely
love
be.
it. How about you? It's probably the same thing that I would say, but you go ahead.
So I know it's going to be the same thing you would say, probably.
I'll let you say it. Go ahead.
For us being away for our anniversary. And I mean, there was one day the place had a pool. So we're in the pool and you're sitting on the side of the pool and I'm leaning against you talking. And I just felt like we were teenage sweethearts. It was the sweetest space ever.
Yeah, it's nice.
And God gave us just this rich fun, extremely fun, lovey time.
Yeah, it's good.
And I am so grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, in case any of you aren't familiar, go ahead.
I was gonna say you should have heard what she said earlier.
Oh.
Maybe we'll splice that in.
Slice that out. I should. Maybe not.
The things you would not want to hear from
yeah,
our podcast,
yeah.
because I speak freely sometimes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
So
About her
about
teenage sweetheart over
yeah,
there.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So our
He is cute, though,
anniversary.
you gotta admit. He's
Yeah,
cute.
that's true. Yeah, right. Our anniversary is 4th of July. Now, isn't that cool? Because everyone in the United States celebrates us by firing off fireworks, including the day we got married. Her brothers in the
Oh.
parking lot. That's another story. We thought we might have got arrested that evening.
Yeah.
But we didn't. That's so good. So anyway, yeah, I would agree. That was awesome. Not that long ago.
Mhm.
So, well, good. Thanks for sharing that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you all learned something today that maybe you wanted to know, maybe you didn't want to know, right?
Yeah.
So the podcast today, I mentioned castles on the battlefield, and then we kind of subtitled it "When Comfort Replaces the Call." But what prompted this was you was it a morning you got up and you said, "Hey,
We were in church.
oh, we were in church. Yes, that morning. That's right. So we were in church, and we left. You were pretty excited to share with me something God showed you. I mean, just for our audience, maybe some folks might not be familiar with some of this language or experiences, so don't
Let
get
me
too
describe
alarmed.
it.
You
Let me
describe.
describe.
You go. Ahead.
I'll describe even.
Yeah.
So, to make it easy, we would just say I had a vision sitting in church. But what do I really mean by that? Because people can get wigged out,
Right.
the gifts have stopped, whatever. I think some of us actually learn, and God communicates to us through pictures. This one happened to be a video. It wasn't just a picture, but I think he communicates to us things that are relevant to us, sometimes relevant to other people. And so when I get a picture, I usually will start to pray about, what is this picture? Lord, why are you showing me this picture? It may be something he wants to deal with in my own life. This one, clearly, as the video is unrolling, I knew immediately where God was going. And I will say, I didn't like parts of this message, because there are parts of this message in a culture that is so committed to comfort and material and the here and now. This is a message that kind of should create some cognitive dissonance, your mind going back and forth to go, wow, I need to really think about this. So this is exactly what I saw. It was really dark. Of course, it should be when I tell you the content, but it was really, really dark, almost like a gray-black background. And there is a man diligently running around from what becomes, I start to see their bodies laying all over. It's a huge battlefield, and they're just, I think, dead bodies that are laying all over this battlefield. And so this man is running around reviving these dead bodies, and as he meets with the person, I'm not sure what he does, but as he meets, all of a sudden that person will start to rise up, and then he revives the next one. And this is a battlefield, millions of people everywhere laying around dead. So it just goes endlessly on, very, very dark. But what's interesting is he gets about 5 people revived, and he brings them to a center point where there's another dead person, and he actually demonstrates what they're to do to revive the person. And so he is, in essence, discipling them on what it looks like to go save others, that he has saved them, and it's their job to move out and save other people. And so they do. Like, the 5 go out, and before you know it, even though it looks, huge numbers still dead all over, you start to see people rising. And so it's this beautiful scene of multiplication of the efforts of the 1 that go to the 5 that go to the 25, and on and on and on. But as this reel goes on, one of the restored people goes and somehow is persuaded to build himself a little shelter in the middle. So he takes his time and he goes and builds this little shelter. And he goes and he takes time and he's in his little shelter. And then the other people see that he built a shelter. So they start building these little shelters. And the next thing you know, as they're looking at whose shelter's bigger, we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger shelters. And the end point is you still have this one man running around saving, and you have people doing it less and less and less, because as their shelters get bigger, they're more concerned that somebody doesn't go do something to their shelter than they are with following and saving, like this man has instructed them to do. And so in the final scene, there's actually a castle, and the castle has this huge, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a huge porch thing, and that can fit several hundred people. And there's a party out on this porch, and everybody's drinking and being merry and having music. And all of a sudden, I look from their vantage point down to the battlefield, and I don't see the dead people. What I see is this merriment, but as they're looking out, everything is like perfectly manicured and green, instead of like the dead people are gone. But in the same time, I'm seeing all the dead people were there, and we've got that first man running around still trying to save them, and he still has some other people that have dedicated themselves and are trying to save them. But the majority of the people are actually up on the porch having this party, and they don't even see the dead people anymore. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I have no idea what in the sermon, I didn't even go back to look at the sermon to see what could have triggered that. But I knew it was important. I immediately wrote it down and actually had ChatGPT draw pictures of what this looks like. Cause I was like, quick, here's the scene, draw something. And it was pretty amazing what it drew. But that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So folks are out there scratching their head a little bit, or maybe there's a few that are going, wait, I think I get it. Or maybe not. What was your first reaction like when you hear that?
I got a less detailed short version of this as a preview of
well, that would make sense.
Sorry.
We just wanted a voice message, which was great. But then and now the first thing I'm drawn to is the man on the field.
Okay.
And I'm very pictorial with God also, in what, if I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
It happens a lot while I'm out in the field in ministry, and but when I'm hearing that and what I'm seeing is the brightness of the first man.
Yeah.
And then everything else is stark.
Yeah.
Like when you start talking the battlefield with the standards and the flags flapping in the wind, everything else is dark except him.
Yeah.
And then the ones that he raises also are bright.
Yeah. I like that.
That's the first thing.
That's the first thing
stands out.
When you guys were talking, what popped into my head was Gandalf and like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, right.
Remember the darkness of the battlefield?
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah.
And the orcs or whatever was it was rising up, and it was horrendous. That's what just popped into my head. A little bit. But so there's definitely an image there. And castle in the battlefields. What a really interesting metaphor for what really is happening, I think, here, but we're going to dig deeper into that. But back to the lone man. Who do you so the light, who do you envision that being? Or is it a Jesus figure, or is it us carrying the light? I mean, what, as Christians, what do you think? Like what hit you there?
Well, I mean, I'm making an assumption, but to me, the lone man running out is Christ coming in, coming into the world.
Yeah.
Like he was in him was life, and that life was the light of men.
Amen.
And he.
And the light shines in the darkness.
And the darkness has not overcome it.
That's right.
And you've got a level of darkness what's interesting is I didn't really see anything but darkness until the man came into focus, and that was when I saw the light.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's like everybody raised there was light, but you really didn't see a lot of light anywhere else. And so yeah, I would have to agree
Which
that
which is
it
the
is
landscape,
Christ.
right? That's the biblical landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Do you think did you, as you're kind of contemplating and praying about it, because I know you did, this really hit you hard. You feel like this is a message that really has to come at the American church in particular, or to anyone really listening right now. It's a more serious imagery than many might want to believe it to be.
Yeah.
And I get, like, there's a discipleship piece, right? Because each of us has a role,
Right.
when we're revived as unbelievers, to carry that light forward, which is what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah.
But give, like, big picture then for us beyond that. Like, what else were you seeing in there? We can keep on.
I mean, I've been obviously from that point praying like crazy. There's a part of carrying a message that I knew when I saw it. Actually, I think I even heard in my spirit, this is the message for the greater church. It has been a part of, in a lot of ways, concern that I've had for the Western church for years and years now. But it was kind of like just this feeling of, it's time. You need to really start to share your heart on this, knowing that it's not going to be popular in a polarized world. You can be aligned, like, oh, you're one of these or one of these, because that's what we do when we don't want to hear a message. But the reality is, I think God is saying, whether the time is near for his return, we got a lot of people, a lot of dead bodies. We've got a lot of people who believe that they are spiritually awake, that, quite frankly, are beyond spiritually dead. And I believe that's inside and outside the church. I mean, I think we look at outside the church, but I will say, if we look at the standard of what God says, when Jesus looks at the young man, the young ruler who comes to him and says, what does it take to inherit, eternal life? We see the story in Matthew. Jesus says, go sell everything that you own, give it to the poor, and come back and follow me. Okay. And my message that God put on my heart is not everybody needs to go sell everything they own and give to the poor. That's not it at all. The first century church ran very, very differently than how the church runs today. And there's reasons why they were not allowed to own property. They did own everything collectively, because God's response to the poor, or the problem of the poor, is we really shouldn't have poor, because we should be sharing, and nobody should have so much that somebody has very, very little. Like, all needs should be taken care of. And so I look at the world today, I look at my investment in working with the homeless, or investment in, well, it was your investment with homeless as well, but just working with people on the margins and going, how could people living in these huge castles, of which I have lived, I can't, when you look around the world, we live a very nice life comparatively. So the question is aimed back at me, as well as, first of all, am I willing at salvation? What if we told people, if you want to be a follower of Christ, here's the criteria? How many people today would say, yeah, let me just sign on for that? Or even if we went to Christians today and said, are you really sold out to Jesus? Is God really on the throne of your life? And if so, it means you have to give up possessions, power, all of that to go to do what God tells you to do. The answer to that question is everything. It's not that you have to go do that, but it really tells you if you're worshiping a little g God, or you're worshiping the God of all the gods.
Well, I see that not necessarily as property or ownership of things, right? Like, my first reaction is it's a condition of the heart. It's a decision that what following Christ looks like. Trust me, I can go back a lot of years and remember when it was, chasing after the thing that the world placed as probably more important than anything else, but that motivation was driven by another whole set of circumstances. I think I didn't really understand what it meant to pick up my cross and follow him at 28 years old, as I'm trying to make my mark in the world. So I was willing to do all kinds of things to make sure I could drive that big Lincoln Town Car that nobody else had on the road, or whatever else I was chasing at the time, But with maturity and with also getting beat up a few times with my choices, I was able to see it in a different light. So rather than chasing what's in this world or building castles, because I built some castles too, quote unquote castles. It just took a realignment of my priorities, and that didn't happen. I don't think even to this extent that you're talking about for us, maybe 12 years ago, for me, 15, maybe. It's this. Not that it's not happening, but that was huge.
Right. I mean, we made a deliberate step to give up everything in order to chase ministry. And yet in that, the question is still there for us to say, what idols are we holding on to?
That's it.
The question to us is, and I remember saying this. I remember when we got married saying, I'm sold out to being in ministry. Like, you got to know who I am. And thank goodness you were sold out to it too. But I'm like, if it means that I live in a shack on this side of the road, that's where I'm headed. Right.
So far, so good. We're good. We're not.
But, and it's one thing to say that. And I do think that I would be obedient to God to that point. I would have a real hard time giving up my house, giving up my sanctuary backyard. Like, if that's what we are called to for us, man, I'd be like, I think I'd be pleading with God, please just don't and certainly don't take my puppy, or, So I think the question is for all of us. This isn't a matter of, we're poking the super rich, or we're poking the super powerful, or we're poking. We all have something. Even the poor have something that. Are you sold out? Is it, I will give up everything for the sake of the cross?
Let's get your thoughts on that.
Yep.
I think that you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned discipleship.
Yeah.
Because in the definition of it is to mold your life after the teacher who you subscribe to.
Yes.
I used to do it one way. Now I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Like a shift in your allegiance and lining your life up with the teachings, like I don't remember where the word disciple came from, but I'm picturing, like, in the Far East, you have or in the Greek world, like the disciples of whatever the philosopher was of the day.
Well, even priests in the Jewish, they had followers in the faith that would have to memorize the Torah. They would follow them wherever they go. So they're it is disciple making from that standpoint.
Yeah. And it's it's a lining up of your life under his life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when he asks the rich man, the rich young ruler, are you willing to sell all of your things? I don't know that was a rule for everybody needs to sell all their things. It was pointing at the thing that kept him from being the capital G.
Exactly.
What is, or like he said to Peter, do you love me more than these? Like, what is the thing that's keeping him off the throne and you?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. To put it.
Yeah, and thinking of it that way, we often are going to refer to John Eldridge. The one thing in the Pause app, the prayer that he taught us was, I give everyone and everything to you. Boy, you pray that prayer and you really mean it, you got to count the cost. And I remember it was, Steve was my holdup. I was like, wait a second.
Wait, what?
I remember the one morning I'm like, I give everything and everyone except for Steve to you. It was like, I realized that I'm like, I don't want to give him to you. I mean, he could go. What would I do without him if you take him home? Like, it was. And I had to really get serious about, well, first of all, I got a question back, which was a good one. God saying, oh, you're better able to care for him than I am. And I was like, oh, heavens no, you take him, right? Like, because I'll just screw him up. So that was helpful. But the reality is, we all have things in our lives that's like, yeah, I'd go this far, right? And I think there are certain prayers and things that we honestly, we need to take a look at because they are the idols of our heart.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought of this too. I remember back when I was, trying to make my mark, I was referring to, and I was partnering in a business with an older. He was much older. I'd say much older. I'm in my late 20s. He's probably in his 40s. That felt ancient, by the way.
Yeah.
Right until I got there, then I was like, oh, I'm young. And he had accumulated quite a bit. Matter of fact, he drove a Rolls Royce. He had a home on the waterfront in New Jersey, across from where we had our business. He had property on the east coast of Florida, so Delray Beach, just north of Boca, and one of the early places I was exposed to wealth was in my 20s. In fact, he was that was the first job I had was in his organization, and then we partnered in a business later on. So just coming out of college, I'm getting exposed to all this. I remember his wife saying, "Well, the balances for those windows, right, that you see over those windows, are about $1,000 a yard." Now this is 1980, 70. So he didn't hesitate to flash it around, and I looked at that, and that became sort of my castle in this battlefield of life, because I figured, well, boy, I could do so much more if I just had means and wherewithal, because if I retire at 20, I can just do ministry full time, or and I'm like, I have all, like it was not about me, right?
Right.
So
yourself.
I think so. Anybody listening, it's worth examining on, well, what is the idol? Because that was, but I was brought into that at a young age, and very impressionable age, especially growing up with a poverty mentality in the house that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. So I wonder what that even looks like for somebody who is just struggling out there to go, well, what really is, discipleship look like for me? And how do I even begin to sort through all this?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, we have lost heart, but it can be recaptured.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't know what for somebody that would say, oh yeah, no, I really don't want that to be a priority, because I can see what you're saying. Like, I don't just want to build for this kingdom. I want to build for eternity, but I don't even, how do I even begin to understand what that looks like?
Yeah. I do think discipleship is a lost art in many of our churches today. And discipleship is extremely important. Just like, I look at spiritual formation and human development. I mean, human development is physical. Human development is also spiritual, but let's just, to keep this clean, there's human development, and then there's spiritual formation. Both ways we're being formed, from infants needing to nurse off of our mothers all the way up. I mean, that is the principle. You don't get saved and all of a sudden you're this advanced superhuman Christ follower. You actually have to learn, you have to be weaned, which means, to me, if you are still reliant on, I go to church on Sunday, I get what the pastor tells me, and maybe I listen to a few other podcasts, you are not going to the word for yourself to start to grow up. That's the real food. And so, but you usually need people to say, hey, whoa, I understand this is the cultural model of Christianity in Western culture. We do these things, but these things really have nothing to do. I mean, they're helpful, Christian community and that kind of thing, but they're not the individual journey that you need to do. And so you do need people who are further ahead on that. Just like in human development, you need people to help you learn to walk and hold on to things and to tie your shoe. I mean, think of all the things that you have to help a child learn. Same thing needs to happen spiritually. But somehow here, we believe it's all wrapped up into saying I do to Christ without even really understanding. I think what I'm realizing is the journey of saying, like for the rich young ruler, Could I have said that at the point of salvation? I was 13 years old. I could have said anything at 13.
Yeah, that's true.
What if at a point of true accountability for that decision, just say it's 28. I don't know what the age would be. 28, somebody asked me, and now I've acquired some things, and I am well on my way to, credentials and different things. Would I have said the same thing? I wouldn't have, because I don't think I even started discipleship till I was in my 30s. I didn't realize it, but I was spiritually formed to the world. And so we are all spiritually formed. Atheists are spiritually formed, but you're spiritually formed to the world, which gives us even like me culture comes from being formed to the world, especially in Western culture. And me is really not a word when you follow Christ's life and see how he laid it down for you. It was never about me. And so I think the journey of formation is actually tearing down the walls, unfortunately, of how we were formed by the world, so we can be formed, into the kingdom way. And I just think you have to have somebody who is a little bit further ahead. They're not better than you, but somebody who can say, yeah, here's the mistakes I've made. Here's what I found that works to be in the presence of God, and really is kind of leading that process.
So I know it's your video reel, but what are your thoughts? Like, how would you describe? Would you have any more to add to that, or?
Well, I was just thinking, thank God that in his mercy, he doesn't ask that question a lot when you're an infant, because we're not spiritually mature to answer it.
Yep.
Like a lot of times we have the salvation experience, and you have dramatic shifts in your allegiance and and there's a huge swath of parts of your life that change.
True.
And then a lot of people stop.
Yeah.
Or it's the continuation of being connected to the vine, and the continued walking out your salvation, getting further and further down the road with him, that he starts to ask other questions.
Yeah.
This other thing that keeps coming up, will you give that to me?
Yeah.
And then you start finding out about all of the other kind of beliefs that you have along the way that are getting unearthed. There's all kinds of ways that it can happen, but it's a marvelous journey.
Yeah.
But he doesn't always lead with the wallop. It's you have that first love experience, and that's what's driving you. And
you're onto something.
Big.
I think that's
I really love that.
worth diving deeper into, because at some point, like I remember I was 9 years old, but I still remember. I still remember how I responded. It was the joy, and then I was a kid. You're already nine, so there's a lot of that anyway. So there's some emotion, but there was a real indwelling of the Holy Spirit that took place, a real change in my life. Even though I thought I believed up to that point, but I actually made a public decision to that.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long, especially in my teenage years, because how many other things are influencing your decision-making process.
Yeah.
Even though I surrounded myself with believers and I was in church all the time, my parents were there. I'm like, no, this is, there's got to be a little bit more. I got to be, this world has a whole lot more to offer, and I'm not understanding it. So let me go check it out, in my own regard, and I think there's a certain spiritual blindness, what's your point, that starts to come on us.
It can.
Yeah, because we start saying no more times than yes to what God has called us to do. I'm going to quote you here, because I wrote it down in your little video reel. Eventually, the people in the castle don't even see the battlefield anymore.
Yeah.
They look out and see meadows. I mean, that's chilling. When you say, if we're the ones standing in the castle, we're partying on, you said you didn't call an over.
Yeah.
All I'm seeing is the castle walls, really cool. Like you have you got umbrellas, drinks, and people stand up there, and you're all this stuff going on, and you look out and you don't even see the broken anymore.
Yeah.
You can't see them for the blindness that has taken place in your life, because you've engulfed into this system or the world's worldview yeah, it's fun. And I'm not saying it's necessarily sin that's happening, like overtly. It could be, but it's
Right.
just saying no a lot of times to what God's calling. I mean,
Yeah.
what more do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a hardening. It's somewhere, like if you're in that place
Yeah.
where you're not seeing the world for what it is, something is shifted. Either could it be, some marginal sin? Could it be saying no to the inner prompting?
Right.
That still small voice
Yeah.
to step, you
Right.
keep
Maybe
saying
that's
no,
sin. That is sin.
just a little
And-
bit. Well, it is.
Yes,
Well,
and
it is.
It is,
yeah.
but it's not like the over.
Yeah, I
like,
hear you.
oh, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
having
the
an
reason
affair
they're
with my
shutting down the Target self checkouts or
Yeah.
whatever.
I didn't rob a bank this week,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's just being so distracted. What you're not spending time with the one
Yeah.
Yes.
who has the light. If you're
Mhm.
seeing picnics on the battlefield,
Vine and branches, like you were saying.
Yeah.
We're unplugged.
Yeah.
unplugged.
Yeah, we're unplugged.
Somewhere
Yeah.
there's a disconnect.
Wrong line.
Well, and I think the question, I would say that my experience of serving people without homes, people who are on the margins of society, is most of the people are sitting in the castle looking out and not even seeing that they exist or that there's a problem, or they blame that individual for the problem versus really and I remember in homelessness I used to say when we would do donor tours and different things, some of the stuff that would come out of people's mouths about the poor reminded me of Marie Antoinette. Is credited with saying this. Of course, people say, oh, she didn't really say it, whatever. But it's this principle of Marie Antoinette looking out over the rebellion because there is no bread in France. And so there's nothing to eat. The people are literally starving to death. And she looks down and says, well, then let them eat cake, And so a lot of my experience was, well, let them eat cake. As if the people, if they don't have bread, somewhere there's a huge cakes
That's
all
right.
around for them to eat. I mean, unless she was going to be providing it, which is not what this statement was about. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of that I think is that just dulling. I mean, for me, in all honesty, when I traveled, when I was in a corporate career, I looked at the homeless. I didn't make eye contact. I tried to get to the other side of the street. I mean, I did everything. I was afraid of them. They deserved what they were getting. Why are they doing all those drugs? They need to stop. That's why I was the most judgy of all the judgy. So I get it, right? And I still am sure that I have judgments that are totally inaccurate, and I've been working with that. But I think that is almost a blindness that, when we started to forget the supernatural realm, which was, through the Enlightenment, but it's so clear in the 20th and into the 21st century, you can see this disconnect completely from the spiritual realm. And I think it blinds us to the fact that Satan is weaponized against the poor. He's weaponized against anybody who's seen it up in the image of God. But there is truly reasons that Satan has driven to keep people down. I mean, feudal system, caste system, all of that, which quite frankly still exists today when you look at tiers of society. Those are real problems. And they're the problems of the king of this world. It is not the way the kingdom would have it. And when we can't look at things, and I'll be political for a minute and not being political, if we can't look at something like, there are people all over this world in incredible need and not have God's heart and the kingdom's heart, which we are commanded in the cultural mandate to view things so that every human flourishes, right? Our question should always be, is this going to lead to people flourishing? And so we're responsible for the economic, the religious, the social systems. We handed that birthright over to Satan, unfortunately, and what he's done with that is always for decreation, always to destroy. And I think the question is, when we don't even see the supernatural realm that people are held in poverty, they're held in sex trafficking, they're held in all kinds of things because of Satan. I think that's a pretty sad statement for a disciple of Jesus Christ to not be able to see and to say, oh, they don't have bread, let them eat cake. You know, my tribe's doing okay. So it really doesn't matter with the other tribes. As long as my tribe's taken care of, like, we're all good.
So you're getting into some pretty important issues there. That probably at the heart of everything we're talking about.
Mhm.
But make it practical. You had something.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, let's expand it even outside of that specific mission and sphere. It's
Yeah.
kingdom. Period. Is if you are, if you're off of your mission,
Mhm.
whatever that is, calling, or whatever you fit into the body.
Yeah.
If you're distracted, or if you're over in a castle of whatever design,
Mhm.
and not out in the field doing what you were called and meant and a purpose to do,
Yeah.
then something's not going to happen. Like, there's less kingdom coming
Yeah,
That's, you're right.
if you're not in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're on the sideline, or by choice or
Mhm.
by happenstance, if
Yep.
you end up over here, you're not over here.
Yep.
Yeah. And that can look like a whole lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it? Esther? Was it who was told? Was it by Mordecai that
Yeah, Esther.
if it is for such a time as this, but if you choose not to, God will raise someone up
Right.
in your place to get it done. Well,
Mhm.
I don't want to be the person standing before God and going, well, I kind of called you, but you decided elsewhere. Now got it done, but man, well, how cool would it have been if we could have been part of the original,
Yeah.
like saying yes to the things that we have been called to do.
Amen.
But back to making it a little more practical though. What are some of the warning signs that we should be looking for when we find ourselves drifting into this space, right, where God has not called us?
No, I just thought of, I don't mean to
No, you go.
go off track, but I was thinking, depending on where you're coming from, how we think God sees us,
Mhm.
it varies wildly. Over here you
Mm.
have hellfire and brimstone,
That's true.
Mhm.
and on the other side of the spectrum, there's the rainbows and
grace.
unicorns.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
That's right.
and how does Jesus see me?
Mhm.
There's a lot of that goes into that. Where does that come from? That's a
Yeah.
lot. Go to your spiritual
That's
formation,
right.
Yep.
That's right.
your family of origin. Like, there's a ton of things that can affect how does Jesus see me.
Yep.
But how does he see the church?
Yeah.
How does he? I've been in all points of this spectrum
Yeah.
at one point or another,
Mhm.
and so sometimes we can hear a message and say, well, that's not how Jesus sees me.
Mm.
That's not how God views me, as after the propitiation of sins and the sanctification, and I'm purified
Right.
by the blood of Christ. But then you look at, is there a difference between how he sees me and how he sees us?
Mm.
Because you look at his message in Revelation to the 7 churches,
Yeah.
right? As a whole, there are some issues.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he doesn't love them
No.
or want the best for them or see every one of them as his children.
Mhm.
But, to hear him say, here's where I have issue with you.
Yeah.
Is something that really makes the back, the hairs in the back of your
Yeah.
neck, or it should
Yes.
make your hair stand up a little bit. Like, I would never want to hear. I mean, I want to hear it, but it depends on the tone, right?
Mhm.
But think about how important it is for us to get into the Word and know what those things even are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To be
but to hear, the people that are on the patio
yeah
looking
yeah.
out sound like he's pointing the finger and saying, "You're poor, you're blind,
Yeah.
you're naked."
Yeah.
How far from reality are you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and how did you get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard the voice memo that was sent with the vision, and the first thing I'm asking myself is, where am I? Like, how does this relate? Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like? You know, in my world, the castle might look a little bit different. Like there's castles of comfort, there's castles of discomfort.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we build walls, we erect fortifications around ourselves for a whole lot of reasons.
Oh yeah.
It can be, I want to be comfortable, or it can be, I'm really uncomfortable and I want to keep everything and everybody out.
Yeah.
And that also goes back, I mean, it all goes back to discipleship to a point, because those are also idols.
Right.
On the counter idol almost, you know, it's not something you're chasing, but it's running your life.
Yeah.
That's true.
The brokenness that you're swimming in and is blocking your calling, it's blocking your relationships, it's blocking.
It's really good. Yeah, it sure is.
So that's what resonated with me and where I came from and where I've been walking through. Like, look at the things that have kept me from really flourishing in kingdom and being out there. It hasn't been the chasing of the things that, well, I guess it has been, but all the wrong things.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about the tree of brokenness. Like
Yes.
you know, if you're not rooted in the right things, you're rooted in the wrong things, and you're going to produce bad fruit, and it's going to interfere with kingdom. You're going to end up in the blind as you are if you're super comfortable.
Yeah.
Chasing all those things, you're going to be still not going to see the forest for the trees or the people that are in need.
Yeah.
So I just throw that out to say it could be.
That's great.
Well, I love it because the point is not, this is a problem of rich people having huge castle houses. It is a problem of, that castle can represent so many things to us.
It's a really, really big picture. It's a really big picture.
And where I agree, what I think is just to highlight, even from the just perspective that all of us are working through, you don't become a Christian and move right into eating meat or running races, right? Like, there's a period, and I think that period is the period of formation where we don't expect you to go out. In fact, we probably don't even want you running around telling people out of your broken ways how to do this, right? Like, you've got to go through that period into adulthood. And again, you're still going to go, we're never going to arrive, right, until we're on the other side of all this, but we can be formed more and more and more into the image of Christ. But there has to be an understanding that, like, I'm going to get weaned, and I'm going to slowly start to sit under, which is dealing with the things that have impacted how I view myself, because quite frankly, I don't even know how to view God rightly. And that whole thing of, as Steve loves to quote Mark Twain, two most important days, the day I was born and the day I find out why.
Yeah.
That purpose question, which I think we see around us, like, people are driving for purpose, and outside of God, you're not going to find it. You're going to keep driving and reinventing and never be satisfied. But in order to get to that, there is work, formation that needs to occur, where you tear down how the world defines purpose for you and you rebuild how the kingdom, and that's the right sizing of who God actually is. And then we deal with the question of fear, because we're supposed to fear him, so now we're terrified. Well, no, that's not the kind of fear. If you are not a believer, you better have that kind of fear.
Yeah.
Even the demons shuddered in the name of Jesus. And so that's that fear. But fear, being the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of righteousness, is, that fear of the Lord. But now we have to learn how to allow God to be Papa, like how he's going to now grow us up. And so it's a journey. We don't turn. And so we might be building our castle for our own purposes, while we're being discipled and formed and be coming into maturity. And at the point we've got the castle 3/4 of the way built, whether that's power. I think my chase for credentials to make myself significant was a castle, and so as we're chasing those things, are we willing when we become, have really committed to formation, to be obedient when God says, I need you to pull half of those like big stones out and do this over here, whatever it is, I think formation leads when we really get who we are and the purpose we're created for. I do believe we're held accountable to, live out. If I am being a disciple of Jesus, and my job is to go save people on a battlefield, I'm going to be held accountable to that.
Yeah.
Right. We're all held accountable to the cultural mandate. What God has called us to is very, very clear. It's using our gifts that he's given us to cultivate. Well, cultivate is bringing the things of the kingdom. He doesn't tell us cultivate the way of the world. And so there's so much to learn there. Yeah, I love that. I love all that you
And I love the
said
imagery you're
there.
talking about with, it just reminded me of when Jesus talks about what are you building your house out of?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is it all going to burn up
Mm-hmm.
when it's all said and done,
Mm-hmm.
or will it stand?
I have to give the next vision.
Okay.
You
I didn't know there was another vision.
There's another video reel, apparently.
You just set this up.
Okay.
So as I've been praying into this one, here's the other vision that he's just recently given me. And I wasn't going to bring it up. I was like, I told Steve this morning, he's like, wow. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to bring it up today, like stuff for today. But you just cued it, and I'm feeling like, oh my goodness.
Here we go.
So the other vision is just picture if we could see under the ground, like at the center of the earth, and we could see all the fault lines that are going to eventually, break, and everything is going to implode inward. And you see they're connected to all these plots of land. And then you see this solid column that comes straight down into the center of the earth. There's no fault line. This thing is like, it's not moving. And God's instruction to his kids is only build on that column, which means you have to seek out. Your journey is to seek what it looks like to be sure you can identify that column, because connected to every fault line is a little g God. Let's not pretend. I mean, there are powers and principalities, and they set themselves up as angels of light. And so we have to be diligent in knowing the counterfeit. And so people get to choose where they build their houses. So many people, like everybody who's built, believes that it is not on a fault line, that they found the real thing. And I think it was like 99 houses to every one house, 99 were built on fault lines, only one on the real thing. And as I'm seeing this, the pursuit of God, the pursuit really of his character, who is he, what does the kingdom look like, is the only surefire way we're building on the right rock, and that it's going to anchor our very soul. And it's going to bring us the shalom of heaven. Like, it is so important. And so that was the other vision that I'm just kind of processing through and I think that's more about.
And it's like they go hand in hand, because we're talking about the discipleship, the wise builder builds on the rock,
right?
Not on the shifting sands. It won't be laid to waste.
Yep.
And the home, the castle, whatever it is that we're building on the rock isn't going to lead to spiritual blindness.
Yeah,
right.
Good.
It isn't going to lead to not seeing
the broken
world as it is.
Yep.
I love that. I'm glad I said it so that you could kind of interpret a little bit of that.
For our audience, though, I think that was a real good time, because what we want them to take away, us too, as we're sitting here talking, is the practical side of this for each one of us. And I was asking earlier, like, what are the warning signs? And I think you kind of answered that indirectly. There are plenty of warning signs that we should be looking for early on in our walk. It's the distractions.
Yeah.
Right? It's the things that we say yes to that you probably didn't even ask God to begin with, whether you should or shouldn't, good or bad. Like, because you come to the fork of the road, there might be two really good options. God wants to tell you his heart in that decision too. And we decide, no, we'll make that on our own. And then something goes sideways, we go, ooh, I guess I really didn't consult him on that. There are a lot of those moments in our life where compromise starts to creep in. And listen, we have thousands of people out there listening, right? They're all at different places in their walk with the Lord. Some this will resonate with some, others not so much. But there is a greater message for everyone listening on some level. Right. So what would be like, how would you encapsulate this where people are losing heart or they're not really honed in to what God is doing in their life? Because that's really the message, right?
Yeah.
That you've been, sharing
Yeah.
to the American church, our ease, comfort, and pleasure, this idea of comfort replacing calling.
Yep.
Because we're all, castles or no castles. This is a humble abode that we're in, but I could see myself very easily just getting comfortable, and at an age where a lot of people are retired, you and I have talked about, like, what is that?
Yeah, I don't even
Like,
understand that as
why would I even consider retiring? Because that would be me sitting in a castle somewhere, like, I mean, metaphorically speaking. It won't be big castles. Or going out and playing golf 3 or 4 days a week, or moving to Florida, or like, that's just not part of what we've been called to do.
Yeah. And let's clarify, retirement is like checking out from even serving the kingdom. It's not about I'm retiring from a job. It's a concept of I've worked so hard, I deserve.
Yes.
That would be more.
And that's just not the way any believer should be looking at this short-term mission trip that we call this life.
Yeah, I don't remember in my vision there were any like rocking chairs lined up along the battlefield because people had retired and now could just rock and watch the carnage.
I'll make a little bit of an exception. My mom in her 90s wasn't going very far, and she was in her easy chair, but that's only because she could barely walk. But one thing she could do was what? And she did it all the time. She did
the birthday cards.
And she prayed.
And she prayed.
And
that is not sitting on the sideline. No, that was a very active thing in the spiritual.
Exactly. So this doesn't mean you have to be out running laps.
Oh, yeah. No.
There's something God's called each of us to do. What do you got over there? You got something on your mind.
Oh, no. I just had a happy memory of your mom. That's all.
That's yes.
You would have had a really happy one had you been at our wedding, because...
Oh, my God. I should play that video.
I knew that was going to come.
Well, she did have her walker, and she was kind of dancing right across there. Mike didn't quite make it.
I was not able to be at our wedding. Everybody else was there, and one of our closest, dearest friends was not there, and so we've never let him forget it. But she was pretty amazing at what she was like.
92.
Yeah. Dancing across the dance floor with her little walker on the way out was one of the funniest, most amazing memories.
And she did live to be 100, and she was still praying. When I found her Bible, she had her list there, and so it was so sweet to see who she was on a regular basis, and she had them crossed off when the prayers were answered. She crossed those off her list. Still have that Bible up there, even though the dog got a hold of it. It was a puppy, but we still have it. So I just think for all of you, this is not a judgment call here. This is simply a challenge to all of us to look at our current situation. And this idea of castles on the battlefield. Look, we're all in castles on the battlefield to some extent. We're never going to do this perfectly. It's just impossible. But God does understand that, and Jesus died for it, that reason.
Yeah.
So as you guys think to kind of challenge anybody on the outside listening, what would you like them to understand about this conversation today? What you saw? You can start.
Well, the one thing that's not what I saw, but that I will say, we're going to be recording a Colleen's Corner right after this. Okay. My husband doesn't know this. He's now knowing it. On the cultural mandate. I would say we need to understand who created us and for what purpose, and the cultural mandate is it. And so we will do that follow-up. So if you're starting to think through, what does that even look like?
Well, what's culture mandate? Just look up Genesis 1:28. We'll
yeah,
tell you that. Okay.
yeah, it's Genesis 1:28, and we'll do I can do a quick little Colleen's
Okay.
corner on that. I think the challenge for every single one of us, and one of the questions that originally we were gonna discuss was, when that vision video hit, how did we all feel about it, in hearing it? And I would say, for me, in kind of experiencing this, the first thing that hit me was just like a little bit of anxiety. And I'm not a person with any anxiety, but this little bit of anxiety of, not am I doing enough to make it in heaven, but more, oh my goodness, Lord, like, this is the human condition, to be distracted in this digital age, probably more than ever. I mean, Jesus probably like, y'all are like herding cats at this point, because we run to everything but what he's called us to run to. And so I had a little bit of anxiety going, like, this is not a pointing a finger outward. It really is just being able to sit with the Lord and say, show me my own heart. Show me those areas where I'm not totally obedient to my call, or even I don't know the right questions to ask to find out if I'm staying the course, or, we are so deceived. And a little trick I do is I usually, and I did with this one, I said, Lord, I know I'm so self-deceived. I'm going to give your Holy Spirit permission to work with my spirit outside of my realm of consciousness, because I know I'm going to twist this message. And so for me, it's, I purely want to be about what you're about. I want to follow your way, which was, you as man, as Jesus, only look to the Father to see what he would have you to do. That's how I want to live my life. And yet I know I'm running off the battlefield constantly. And so I had this feeling, and it wasn't a feeling like I'm going to be smited. It wasn't that. It was just, man, I really, really desire this, that at the end of the day, when I finish my race here, I'm going to hear, well done, good and faithful servant, and I know what he's called me to. So I think that's the place of that I would challenge people in your own personal journey to just ask, get quiet with the Lord and ask him the question, where am I leaving the battlefield?
It's great. Great way to sum it up. I saw you light up over there. You were ready to share something too.
Well, no, I was just going to say, the vision, because we and our audiences are all over the map on
that's right.
what is and isn't acceptable. Do people have visions? Do people? All the things that we've talked about are so foundationally scriptural.
Oh yeah.
That's really the litmus test of anything that you see or hear from God personally, is what is it? There's nothing he will ever say, see, or show you that's outside of what's in his word.
Yeah.
And Jesus was full of metaphor and picture, and just describing how things work. The kingdom of God is like a man who goes and finds treasure in a field, and so there's all kinds of images. And so I love that this has, at the end of the day, it lines up like with all that God has said, and all the things that he's.
And I'm not trying to say there was this special revelation given just to me. It is crucial. I mean, that's how you do determine when the Gnostic said, I have all this special revelation that doesn't line up with the Bible, and you need to reject that. That's false teaching. But love that you point that out.
And you can see that like, for the first thing I thought of was, now I'm going back to the letters to the 7 churches, right? Yeah. You had asked, like, how do we, what are the symptoms? Right. Well, how do we find our way back? Yes. Right. And I find it interesting that I just looked up what his feedback was to the first of the 7 that he wrote in the letter was to Ephesus, was you've forgotten your first love. Yeah. So what he says is repent and to do the works you did at first. Yeah. So what does that look like? That looks like falling in love again. It looks like spending time with him. Yeah. Spend time in his word. get reconnected to the vine because you were swimming in it when you
perfect.
going back to the things you did at first.
I couldn't say it any better. I had thought, this popped into my head, that revival, and when I say revival, I mean not necessarily that people are getting saved all over the world. I'm talking about revival in our own self, like a revival of what you said, the first love, coming back to where we really understand it. It begins when we make a very specific choice. And I'll just use this, add the metaphor of returning to the battlefield. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means the battlefield is, there is a battle for our own heart, but so we have to be, I mean, one of the ways that I think we can recognize a return to really our first love is it's not going to be ease, comfort, and pleasure anymore, because there's a ongoing spiritual battle going on, and you will, rather than seeing meadows, you might start seeing dead people again. Okay. There's a movie, I won't say it. I know you're speaking the code. I see dead people. No, it's not. I got real serious, and but truly, like, you get to see from God's eyes where there's so many people whose hearts need to be rescued. We say it anymore when people ask us, what are you guys about? Well, we're not. I don't talk about what we do. I talk about what we're about, and that is rescuing hearts for Jesus. We're partnering with God, who's called us. You know, we've given in to the calling. Finally, we get it. We understand. And Colleen said, like, you just got to get quiet and chase that. Understand that. I think that's the solution. That's the ultimate solution.
He keeps bringing up these letters in Revelation. So I have to, I mean, I've been on this one for the last probably year and a half, is the letter to Laodicea. And I always think that's the letter to the American church. And it's very, very condemning. And it's not meant to be condemning. It's meant to point something out.
Right.
And when I read the letters, I take them inward and say, okay, where am I part of this? Because really, we're the only person that we can change in the equation. We're the one who we can do the work to get to be a brighter and brighter light in that darkness, so that, but the letter to Laodicea, basically Jesus is rebuking their lukewarm faith. This is Revelation 3:14 through 22. So I think this is another place for people to go take a look at some of these passages to go, any of this even makes sense. Rebuking lukewarm faith, and a huge piece is spiritual complacency. They're not hot nor cold. And so God is calling the church to repentance and spiritual renewal. Now we're seeing, the other thing it highlights is the self-deception about the spiritual condition. So people are believing they're spiritual. I look at the church in America to begin with. There are things where we call ourselves a Christian nation. And the reality is, if we would look at markers of what that means, we redefine that even in the founding of our country with me. It's all about my liberty. It's all about, my rights, which is totally opposite the kingdom. And so it's interesting, to look at what is God really saying. And I do think it totally goes along with the letter to Ephesians. It goes along with a lot of what Paul wrote, talking about that return to that posture of intimacy and abiding. And if any of those concepts, you're hearing them going, I don't have a clue what that means, or, that's kind of weird, being intimate with Jesus, look at the concept of abiding and the fact that if we unplug from that position and we have a choice to stay plugged in or to unplug, some of us never learn how to plug in. And that, I think, to me, is the missing piece of discipleship, as we start to understand some of these concepts. But it's really, really important in these dark days that we understand that concept of abiding. I would hate to hear the words, you were just lukewarm, like you weren't hot or cold, like you didn't really have any passion, you're just kind of going through the motions. Oh my goodness.
Well, that wraps up a lot of what we really are saying here. Yeah. That's really what it's about. So Michael will give you the last word as we close. What would you like to leave with the folks? that are out there by the thousands, waiting with bated breath since we had this huge entry, of the metaverse, just wanting to hear from you. I'll give you a chance to do that.
Well, this is going to go right off the rails, but I was thinking, I went way off on a tangent in my mind when you were talking
You're
about,
loud.
we the people, how our country was formed and the individual liberties and things. But the first thing that came to mind was e pluribus unum, out of many one. And I can't get into a political discourse on that,
Right,
but I think that's,
Yeah,
there's a lot of what we're trying to say.
true.
Out of many, we are one in him.
Amen.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Out of many,
That's
we
great,
are
right?
one. Yeah.
a great wrap. Thank you. Yeah, that wasn't off base at all.
No.
Well, guys, thank you. This has been helpful. I'm hoping for many of you that you'll take something away and share it with us, share it with others, give us some feedback. What do we say? Like, review, share, and we'll be back again real soon. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining us, and for the Embracing Brokenness podcast. Blessings to you all.
This was another episode of the Embracing Brokenness podcast. For more information on Embracing Brokenness Ministries, please visit our website at embracingbrokenness.org.